Hello, I'm Rao Mulpuri, and along with my colleagues, over the last 12 years, we've been building View to transform the day-to-day window. The smart window controls heat and glare, eliminates blinds and shades, and provides view and natural light all the time. Because we have a highly connected system, we're able to bring a whole host of smart building applications. For example, this video you're watching is coming to you through the View Smart Display, which is a high-definition display that's installed right into the window. Also on this platform, we have a sensor array that has a number of environmental sensors, and these can be used in order to control the environment precisely for the health and wellness of the people. These new applications transform buildings into living spaces that help us engage, interact, and communicate with each other. The buildings will be transformed into high-speed 5G cell towers with complete wireless coverage. Now that the blinds are lifted, these humanized spaces will keep us entertained while keeping us connected to natural light and views of the outdoors. And we're just getting started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Realcomm Live. Got to tell you, things are getting pretty exciting around here. We are about 3.5 weeks from our conference in Orlando. Things are coming together phenomenally. The pace is absolutely picking up. We're going to have a few surprises, which we're excited about. We're not going to let on too much, but innovation is alive and well in the real estate industry, and we're excited to be bringing so much of it to you in Orlando, June 15th. So what we've been doing for the last few weeks is kind of concentrating on the conference a little bit, talking to our chairman and various different folks who are in charge of pre-conference events and special events taking place. And this week is going to be no different. We're going to be focusing on the smart building or a boot camp, intelligent building boot camp. I think we've been doing it for about 10 years. And the idea is really simple. We assume somebody knows nothing about a smart building. Don't care who they are, what company they work for, how big the project is. Put them in a room and let them ask any question they want. There is no question that is not able to be asked. And we have had some incredible brands in that room, incredible people that have gone on from that basic foundational learning to create some of the most iconic smart buildings, districts, portfolios in the world. We've got two phenomenal guests today at the core of this conversation. Tom Shercliffe, the co-founder of Intelligent Buildings, really the organization we've relied on for the last 10 years to put on this event. And John Hester, owner and chief consultant, Hester Consulting. But most notably, his last major project was Hudson Yards, that city within a city in New York. So let's bring them on and get this conversation started. Hey, guys, how are you?
Hey, fine, Jim.
Good to see you. I think about how fast time has flown. And Tom, I kind of remember 10 years ago, sort of sitting down with you and saying, we can't assume everybody knows, what we, know or what we're, hunting down around the world. We gotta create a place where people can start from scratch, right? And hence the birth of the Intelligent Buildings Bootcamp. So why don't you give everybody a little bit about your background as well as the foundational ideas and where this whole IB Bootcamp started?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tom Shercliffe, co-founder of Intelligent Buildings, and we do a lot of advisory and assessments and managed services for building technology and cybersecurity. And Jim, I think it was really an epiphany that long ago, 10 years, hard to believe, that there was a group of us all that were focused on this and pushing the envelope and that kind of thing. But we all started to realize, wait a minute, this is getting to be more of a mass adoption issue. But there was not clarity on really how to get going. So we really took your lead on this and facilitating that anybody in real estate for a project or a portfolio could come to the boot camp and come out of there with actual action items and things they could do to leverage technology. Again, whether it's a new project or an existing portfolio. And I like what you said about the old axiom, there's no dumb question in this environment.
No.
We kind of joke it's a safe space away from the smart building geeks. So you can say, I've got a project. What am I going to do? And the other thing is we give plain spoken methodology. We talk in real estate, not in technology. And to your other question, our role is simply to facilitate the best speakers, empathetic speakers, if you will, that can speak in plain language, and more importantly, help spur some action by the audience.
Now, I mean, you would think, folks coming from big companies, notable brands would be a little hesitant, right? To kind of get in a room and say, hey, I don't know much, but give us an idea of some of the companies who've sat in that room.
Oh gosh, I mean, that's the cool thing, is that some of the most accomplished companies have come in there and said, intuitively, I know we need to be doing more or different right now. That could be the Warner Media is a great example, Cisco Systems, Coca-Cola, Oracle, the GSA with their 400 million square feet, Oxford Properties, and a host of other REITs. So corporate and commercial, institutional, healthcare, we've seen all kinds of brands you would know in there on the front row.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure working with you guys for the last 10 years and getting this done. And I do think it has really provided a good foundation. The beginning, let's use a building metaphor, the concrete, before you put up the steel, you need that foundation. So that's a good segue to John. John, I mean, you've got your DNA on a lot of different projects, and not of them, in the early part of your career, I don't believe they were all smart. Why don't you give our audience just a little understanding of your background so we can, figure out how you got into this intelligent building conversation?
Sure, Jim. Thanks. Well, I was with Time Warner, Turner Broadcasting, Warner Media, all the same company under different names for 26 years. I started off with them and before that, I first got into building automation when York International started to dabble in building automation. But really, my career really was with Time Warner Turner. With Turner, I started off as an engineering project manager, but also an energy manager. And so I kind of took those two things together. I had responsibility for all energy management at Turner, and then we merged with Time Warner. Got involved in the Time Warner.
What year was that about? What year was the merger, Time Warner merger?
Oh gosh, let's see. I started with Turner in '93. The merger must have been, it was before the turn of the century. It must have been around 97, 98.
Okay.
Because then at the end, at the beginning of the turn of the century, I got involved in the Time Warner Center project at Columbus Circle.
Yeah.
Right. So that was at that time, that was the biggest real estate project in the history of the United States back at the turn of the century, and we did a large project there. I was the MEP lead for Turner Broadcasting, and then I took the position of executive director of global building engineering for all of Time Warner Corporate, which was kind of a center of excellence for hard services, smart maintenance, electrical and mechanical. And during that time is when Warner Media made the decision to consolidate all of its properties in Manhattan and move from Time Warner Center to Hudson Yards.
Right.
And at that time, we were given the edict by our vice president of real estate to we cannot move into a building that is going to be obsolete by the time we move in.
Wow.
And so my boss and I, Steve Lefkowitz, as you all know, went on a search for, okay, how do we keep ourselves, how do we future-proof ourselves so that we do what we're told to do. So, and the end result was Hudson Yards, 1.4 million square feet. We integrated over a dozen platforms, the smart building system, several 100,000 points. And at the time, I think it still is, it was the largest integrated smart building system in the world.
So let's just break that down a little bit. So what everybody's looking at is Hudson Yards, a city inside of New York City. One of the most iconic, I think, major projects. I think was the largest, and still not the largest in the world. And then the Warner building is Warner Media building is the one with the wing on it, right?
That's right.
The tall one. Okay, so that's a big iconic building. Okay, and Steve says we're going to make sure this thing's not obsolete, right? Where do you start? So that's actually my next question. What made you decide to attend boot camp and sit in a room full of beginners to say, I don't really know where the state-of-the-art smart building is?
Well, I mean, we had to do that, right? And there was no way we were going to fake our way through smart building. We were going to have to learn. We were going to have to learn from somebody that knew what they were doing, and we wanted to make sure that we started not with anyone that had hardware or software to sell, but with a consultant that could kind of guide us through what we had to learn and how we had to, craft the project so that we could get the best possible outcome.
All right. So when you sat in that room for the first time, listening to your peers ask questions, I mean, were you ready to dive in? Did you sit back? What was that experience like when you went to that boot camp?
Well, I mean, we had dabbled a little bit in the idea, the concept of smart building. We did have a little integrated system at the Turner Broadcasting in Atlanta, where we had about 4 or 5 platforms. So what I wanted to really do is listen to where the state of the technology was, and how we could apply it, and what it could do for what we were trying to do at Hudson Yards. So it was a lot of listening to begin with, before we started to ask the questions.
No, a good professional knows that, early stages of any project, listening, and just kind of getting a sense of the ground that you're working on is critical. So Tom, you're sitting there on the other side, presenting this information, you guys constantly aggregating, keeping it up to date, but you see some pretty heavy duty folks walk into that room. What was your experience? Was there intimidation? Was there, excitement? What was the general sense?
Well, I think what's great about it, and John and his team were leading on this idea, is that the people that come there, again, these great brands of these large portfolios and projects, they're really looking for, as John said, how, not what, right? So I've heard John say many times, we've seen dozens, if not hundreds, of point solutions. And the more important is how we're going to, yeah, exactly. But how we're going to do this. And also say, Jim, on a recent Realcomm webinar, Kathy Farrington of Google expressed the same thing even last week or 2 weeks ago, saying that their global strategy was sort of what John was saying. It was smart building enabled. And that is sort of, how am I going to put this together? I'm not going to worry about chasing all the systems and features right away. How am I going to do this so that the building can continue to be flexible? And you heard John say his first mandate was, don't move into a building that's already obsolete. And what that came to mean to them was, make sure it's flexible and scalable and can endure the test of time.
And I think that's a critical point that's easy to miss, where everybody comes in and they can say, wow, smart building, it used to be building automation, then it was a smart building, now it's buildings IoT, and all these fancy acronyms and all these layers of technology. It can become pretty intimidating. But I think you're absolutely right. If you get to the point of saying, look, I'm not going to figure everything out the first day, but I'm going to create a foundation. I'm going to create an architecture that can grow with the building as things do change. I can plug things in and out. And the idea of putting one network in, as opposed to 30, 40, 50 different systems, different wiring schemes, all different operating platforms, I think that's a pretty common sense decision to go with one versus 30.
Yeah, and John has said multiple times how this is proven out, because John, you can tell it better, but in mid-construction, they had a focus on operational efficiency, and they were told, wait a minute, this is a big cultural thing for our company. Now it's got to be about occupant experience, but our strategy didn't change.
That's right. I mean, I mean, we realized that there was opportunities for the employee experience to really benefit from this, and we were I think forward thinking enough to include HR as one of our partners in the whole smart building experience, and that helped us kind of consider the right employee experiences to kind of follow up with.
Yeah.
And then the little thing called the pandemic, and then a merger, and so John's work from the beginning has gone through these probably 4 or 5 phases in the amount of years you can count on your hand.
Well, I think I've heard multiple people say, if you get the highway right, then you can drive any truck on it you want. Yes. Right. So make sure it has enough lanes, make sure it's pretty standardized, make sure that the width for the lanes is the same as the car. Right. So get the highway right. And then, like you said, Tom, experience, back-end operational efficiency, whatever you're looking for, as long as the strategy and the infrastructure is correct, you're in good shape. So John, before we go on break, real quick question. I heard rumor that your boss actually was going to attach rodent control systems to the network.
Well, we were looking at all kinds of smart building stuff, including bathroom type technology that would look at the amount of paper left in the paper towel dispenser. But yeah, there actually is technology to monitor pest control, so that instead of having to walk all the traps every day. You just wait till you get a little indication that there's one has something in it. So yes,
Well,
he did. We did.
I have used that example more than he would like to know, but because a lot of times people say smart building, especially from the old world, they think immediately HVAC, and then they might go to lighting and access control. But I always use the fountain at Bellagio, and I use his example of rodent control, because once you get the highway in place, you can have big trucks, you can have little trucks, you can have all sorts of applications, and it kind of opens people's minds to the idea of, well, wow, there's a lot of things I can do in a smart building. Yeah,
it really is.
All right, let's take a brief break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of a little bit of the journey that John went through in his smart building projects, and then we're going to get into a little of the details of the boot camp. Be right back.
Create a workplace that employees love with AppSpace. AppSpace is the only unified platform that simplifies employee communications and helps you manage your workplace. The modern workplace has changed. Employees want flexible work arrangements, which can create challenges for productivity, company culture, and your technology needs. The AppSpace platform combines digital signage, space reservation, an employee app, kiosks, visitor management, and content to help solve these challenges and build a successful hybrid workplace. Use AppSpace anywhere, easily integrating with your everyday tools. AppSpace helps you reach employees, keeping them engaged and improving productivity. Using the same app, your team can book rooms, desks, and resources while you manage everything in one place. Companies all over the world trust AppSpace to help them create workplaces their employees love. Try for free at appspace.com.
All right. I do want to get into a few of the details of the boot camp, but before we do, John, since we got you here and this is such an iconic project, I just want to ask you, what were some of your biggest challenges, going after a project of that size, scope, but really the high profile nature, all eyes watching? What were some of the things that you had to overcome? Was it the technology? Was it the change management? What were, 2-3 of the biggest challenges you faced in that project?
The project, even without smart building, was incredibly complicated because you had so many people, so many entities involved, and getting all those entities to understand what we were trying to do was a big challenge. You had a base building MEP engineer, you had a build out base build engineer, you had of course the landlord, you had getting all those people to really understand what the concept of a smart building was, because they all had their hands in the plans and specs, was probably the early challenge. Then the later challenge was recognizing that the IT lift was a heavy lift, and getting the resources to make sure we kept the project on schedule. The ability was there, but the amount of resources needed to stay on schedule, kind of on the IT side, was a challenge at some point.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for the facilities operational side of the business to align with IT? Scale of 1 to 10.
11. I mean, it's crucial. The IT team needs to be involved from the very beginning. If you're thinking of doing a smart building, you need to talk with your IT, your CTO, or whoever your IT person is immediately, so that they're prepared, they understand what you're trying to do, because they need to be involved. It's not going to work without a healthy IT cooperation.
Would you recommend somebody going, from the facilities, upside, who goes to the boot camp? Would you recommend that they bring their IT person with them?
Yeah, I would, actually. I think that's a great idea. I think that they'd understand, they'd have a better understanding of what's being trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and they hear it firsthand. They hear the questions. They're
right.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying IT, OT, integration for probably 20 years. I actually come from an IT background. And when I got into the built environment, 25, 30 years ago, I looked up at the ceiling and I just started seeing IP addresses, right? I'm saying lights, doors, access control, it's all an IP address. But most of my peers in IT did not see that connection. So, a lot of times we're trying to figure out who drives the smart building conversation. Is it OT? Is it IT? Is it somebody else? In one of our organization's cases, the person, big visionary, came from construction, right? But I think getting all people in the room at the same time would be helpful. So Tom, let's talk about the boot camp a little bit. What are 3 key things somebody attending will walk away with?
Yeah, so a few things I think they'll get, Jim. One is how to very practically use real estate technology to deal with the issues of the day. So we can't ignore some of the elephants in the room. We can't, wait for our grand strategy to think about, I'm dealing with hybrid work. I'm dealing with sustainability, and I've got cybersecurity. So one thing is how to practically deal with the big things that are on your plate right now. Another one I think would be, we mentioned this earlier, a methodology to do this, kind of like John said he was seeking, meaning you just can't chase systems and features. It never ends. So we'll give a methodology of how to do that. And finally, I guess I'd emphasize that this is a real estate conversation, not a geeky techie conversation. So we'll dip in a little bit to some technology, but it's about developers, asset managers, property managers, facility managers, workflow, culture, the way real estate works, and how we can apply technology there.
But if I come into the boot camp with a question like, I hear about this 5G, CBRS, IoT stuff, am I going to get my questions answered?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So some of those issues we will demystify those things and also connect what they have to do with real estate and what you need to do about it. That also includes issues like scoring systems. Like we all knew about LEED, back in the day. That's still here, but now there's 4 or 5 other ones. And do I need that? Why do I need that? So those kind of questions will give you quick, practical answers on how to put those in context.
And I think we actually intended for this to be the case when we thought of the boot camp, 10 plus years ago. It's really the primer to going to the conference, to IBCon, right? Because when you go to IBCon, boy, it gets technical pretty quick, okay? And you go in some of those session rooms and you start seeing schematics of building systems and building operating networks. It can be a little overwhelming if you're new to it. But the boot camp, I think, is a great place to get that foundation, get the basic questions answered, and then I think you can actually read the IBCon program better, having spent a few hours in that room, with your team.
We've heard that a lot, Jim, and that's the great thing about the boot camp is it's the pre-conference the day before. So that is the last thing that we do is put in context. Now we've got this framework, some methodology, we've answered some big questions, and when you go out onto the floor or pick the sessions you're going to go to, you're going to do it in that framework. And we've heard people say it was the most productive couple of days at a conference they've ever had because they attacked it with a purpose and with a framework to do it within.
Yep. So I got one final question, John. We'll start with you. You've started your career a while back, lots of iterations, just an incredible amount of experience that, somebody younger coming up, the ranks, sometimes are a little impatient. And they kind of think they may know a lot of everything, but the reality is they got a lot to learn like we all do. With your career, in perspective, what is a singular piece of advice you would give to somebody starting out on a smart building journey?
The singular piece of advice would be to know what your objective is. What do you really want to accomplish with your smart building journey? Is it employee experience? Is it carbon reduction or energy savings? Is it OpEx savings? What is it you're trying to accomplish? And then get the partners involved in your organization to help you that are related to that. That I think is the number one thing. And I can't say that without saying, get some help. Don't be too shy in asking for someone like Intelligent Buildings to be a consultant. If you're not an expert, don't try to be the expert.
Right.
Don't be shy about help.
And you brought up, occupant experience, energy efficiency, indoor air quality, all these reasons to do a smart building. The real answer is all of the above. But if you don't know what all those reasons are and you only look at it from one perspective, that's when I think you can get into trouble. Right?
Well, I'll add though, Jim, that different companies put different emphasis on those different objectives.
I agree.
And so you have to know your company culture to know which one to focus on.
Yep. Oh, absolutely got to be prioritized. But like, as Tom said earlier, you were in a position that because your strategy was so spot on, as things shifted and changed, you could just plug in the next idea, right?
That's right.
And having all those ideas recognized up front, I think, is important. So, Tom, you've been at this a while. We've been around the world together, looking at smart buildings. what's the single one piece of advice you would give to somebody starting up?
Yeah, Jim, I would say in a word, it's stewardship. Nobody asked if technology was going to plow into our buildings. It's been going that way since the 80s. So you have internet connected digital systems with IoT and more stuff coming every day, including cybersecurity risk. You have a stewardship obligation to have a point of view and embrace it and be proactive with it.
Yep. Yeah, I think I heard this probably about 3-4 years ago. I think it wasn't Elon Musk. I think it was the CEO of Ford. And he said, we used to build an automobile, but now we build we 4 wheels on a computer, right? Yeah, a computer with 4 wheels, right? And that's because of the complexity of what was going on inside of an automobile. Well, if you think there's complexity inside of an automobile, you better understand the level of complexity inside a building. So I would argue that a building is just a big computer. And the more we understand it, the better we're going to operate it, and the more people are going to enjoy it. Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. John, congratulations on a number of successful projects, especially your last one, and good luck to you in the future. And Tom, thank you for everything you do for the industry and specifically the boot camp. And we'll be seeing you guys in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks.
Thank you, Jim.
Take care, Jim. Thanks.
All right. Have a great day. Be well. All right. Let's bring Mr. Berger in. It was actually a pretty interesting news week, and he's got some great stories for you. And Howard, I will turn it over to you.
Oh, thanks, Jim. And thank you, Tom and John. It was really great having you both with us. I mean, it's really amazing when I think of all the major companies that launched successful smart building initiatives, and it all started with the boot camp. It's really left an indelible legacy, I think, on our industry. And I'm really looking forward to another successful boot camp in a couple of weeks. So now on to the news. And I'm going to recap a couple of stories from the week. So our lead story comes from one of our own Realcomm CIO advisors, Don Oldham, VP IT for Duke Realty. And it's a brilliant, thought-provoking article that really focuses on how our industry can think about what is AI, what it is not, and how to best leverage it. And there's a lot of misinformation, and hype around AI. Yes, we can use it with NLP to simulate humans in a chat room. We can evaluate images for identification. We can predict outcomes from a data set. We can analyze, recognize, extract data from documents. And now there are several vendors who've had really good success with commercial real estate applications like Okapi for predicting tenant risk scores, and Cherry for building custom AI models from large data sets. Altrios extracting data from deal memos. And we've seen lease abstraction apps and a variety of other vendors applying machine learning to reduce energy spend. And now software providers like Microsoft, they have a bag of simple tools like Power Automate, so non-technical folks can even build custom models. So not to steal Don's thunder, but he goes on to further describe how he's leveraged tools like Power Automate to yield results with low effort and immediate impact in a number of areas. Thanks, Don. This is a great read. Also, I want to shout out to this week's TED partner, Corning. So why does today's smart building need a fiber-based in-building network? So answers are power and bandwidth, and it needs a lot of it. They enable simple centralized building management, enable changes at the edge, unlimited bandwidth to support any requirements, ease of swapping equipment. Now you can do it in seconds. A lot of less conduit and a lot smaller cable trays. Plus, you can have single runs from the MDF of more than 2,000 feet, eliminating virtually IDF closets on every floor. So I think the argument for fiber-based networks fairly obvious, especially now with the composite cable that now carry power. So thanks, Corning. Next, at Accenture, 150,000 new hires. They're going to spend their first day of work in the metaverse. So question, what do you wear to your first day of work in the metaverse? So Wall Street thinks metaverse is worth trillions, and companies are finding creative ways to join the virtual space. So Accenture has over 700,000 employees globally, and they're going to be using metaverse for onboarding new hires in a virtual campus environment. This year alone, 150,000 new hires will be working in the metaverse on their first day, up from 11,000 last year. Employees are going to log into their Facebook accounts, use Oculus headsets, and there's going to be a whole slew of new policies and procedures to figure out this technology. So the change management piece is going to be fundamental. This is going to be a great use case to keep an eye on. And finally, New York City Hotel has launched nation's first NFT hotel experience. So Saper, developer, launched a curated NFT for their NoMo Soho Hotel making the hotel the first in the U.S. to offer guests a way to book using blockchain technology. So Sabre partnered with a leading tokenization platform, NFT Stays, which is a selection of specially curated NFTs that are packaged with 3 to 6 night stays at Nomo Soho. And guests will have access to exclusive preferred rates and competitive prices just by purchasing an NFT with a unique picture of the iconic hotel. Now, these packages will start with 3 night stays with a bunch of additional perks, and they're priced from 0.41 ETH, which at launch is valued at about $836. Really not a bad deal for 3 night stay. I'm always fascinated with innovative attempts at incorporating some of these emerging technologies, so keep an eye on this. So I'm gonna wrap it up. That's it for me today. So back to you, Jim.
So I've got a question. The article that piqued my interest was at Accenture, okay? And they have been one of the most innovative companies in the world for a very long time. And my next point would be, sometimes the winning lottery ticket, the map to the gold mine is right in front of you. You just choose not to hear it or see it or embrace it, right? So every employee, first day Metaverse, I understand they purchased 60,000 headsets, okay?
Yep.
That's a significant investment. Well, let me tell you how smart Accenture is. The year is 2004. We took a delegation of real estate people to Asia. We were in Kuala Lumpur at Accenture's office, and I will tell you for a fact, because I was there, that was the first time I saw a hybrid office. For 2004, Accenture had an office in Kuala Lumpur that was physically big enough to hold 100 people, but it serviced 400 people in the region. They were on flex space over 20 years ago, or close to 20 years ago. So if I were you, whoever's listening, reading, I would pay attention to that article. Metaverse is still a little fuzzy, but if a company like Accenture is buying in, you better be sure that something's coming and it's going to impact us all.
In the no doubt, of course, Meta has made the largest investment in the technology. On the services side, without a doubt, Accenture is out there. Yep. As in terms of investment in IP on how this stuff is going to be used, and that is, in my opinion, I think that is a viable use case.
And you have some good Metaverse conversations going on at the conference, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're going to be approaching it from a number of different ways, from the technology and the technology gap. What's going to need to be done for adoption, but we're also going to be talking about, Metaverse. How do you look at it as an investment?
Right.
What is the, how do you look at it from a financial point of view, in terms of?
Well, we've got some surprises planned. I'm excited. We're not sharing too much. We're going to let people kind of see it when we bring it out. But a lot of hard work I know that you've put into that program, and we're excited. 3.5 weeks to go. So
yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. All right. Before I wrap with next week's show, let's hear from our final sponsor, and I will be right back.
Rebot saves one of our clients over 50 hours a month on their property management project. Another client saves 25 hours every month by using its AI-powered invoice automation. And Rebot finishes the task in just 30 minutes. RPA as a service empowers you to advance your analytics, guarantee consistency, and increase productivity, all while enhancing accuracy and improving employee morale. As a scalable, reliable solution, Rebot becomes an extension of your team, growing alongside you and creating more time for the human members of your team to do what they do best. Your time is important. Let us help you create more of it. Rebot is powered by Retransform, a global technology services provider and partner.
All right. So as we get closer to the conference, we have constantly got our ear to the ground to see, what are the big topics bubbling up, right? Obviously, cyber's in there, energy, indoor air quality, the shortage of technical expertise in our industry. Well, another topic that's been around for a while and continues to be at the top of the pyramid is PropTech, and specifically the PropTech investment landscape. No surprise, I've been a little critical of what's been going on in prop tech in the last 10 years plus. The amount of money put into the industry, the lack of governance, the number of companies that have come and gone with nobody talking about them. And so we are going to have a really good conversation next week on the status or state of prop tech in our industry. We've got two phenomenal guests, Ivan Van Broekelen out of Chicago and Stephen McDonald, the Prop Tech Connection. And he's coming to us from Australia. So we are looking forward to that conversation, and hopefully our people listening will have some good questions for us. These guys know what they're talking. They look at the world landscape as far as prop tech is concerned and have their really good understanding of where we are at this moment in time. So with that, I look forward to seeing you all next week. You have a great weekend. Be well and take care.